Hey Buckley, so welcome back to another video. Today we are doing my May wrap up. I have already wrapped up 3 books for May because those are the ones that are already packed up or already where they need to be. We have The Incandescent by Emily Tash, Consider Fleabus by Ian M. Banks, Confounding Oaths by Alexis Hall. All of those are in my April wrap up because they were books that I wouldn't have on hand and I was worried I would forget to mention them. As you can see, I have not, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. So those ones are already wrapped up in the April one, so I will go link that video if you want to check out my thoughts on any of those. But for the rest of it, let's go. I had a little bit of mentee bee at the start of the month. I am moving country and it's stressing me out. So I literally had a week, maybe a week and a bit, where all I did was read historical romances. Literally every day a new historical romance. I was just reading one a day and plowing through them. I did do a vlog where I talk about 4 of those, but I think I have 8 to talk about. Maybe 7 to talk about today. It was a time, don't judge me, okay? I've also just been reading a few in the background for a different vlog throughout this month. So you'll see it when you see it, but a lot of historical romances. So we're gonna plow through all of those. If you're not interested in historical romances, then I'll leave a timestamp down below so you can skip over those. Everything after that is either fantasy or historical fiction, I believe. So it might be more my regular ballpark if that's of interest to you. For the historical romances, the first 3 that I read, the first one was actually still in April, but by the time I did my April wrap up, I knew that I'd read the other 2 books in May and I thought, I'll just put them all together because it will make it easier. And that was the Wanton Dairy Maids series by Tessa Dare. I didn't love this series. I didn't hate it. I really enjoyed Tessa Dare. Again, I read each one in a day. Super easy to get through. They're not my favorite Tessa Dares by a long stretch of the imagination. I've gave 2 of them 3 stars and the last one 2 stars. But I had fun while reading them. Like even the 2-star read one, when I think about it, I'm like, maybe not. But when I was reading it and when I was in the moment, it was still like really digestible. So, you know, Tessa Dare's still got that going for her. The first one being The Goddess of the Hunt, and this one is a friends to lovers, but also wingman romance. So we have this like trio of best friends, and the sister of one of them is in love with one of the other ones, with her brother's best friend. She goes to the 3rd one and is like, I need you to help me seduce him because he's about to go get married. And the other guy's like, no, he doesn't want to marry you. I'm not going to help you. So then he kind of takes it on himself to stop her from doing something really reckless because she's basically trying to get herself compromised with him, so he has to marry her. And the other guy's like, no, you deserve someone that just loves you, someone that doesn't feel compromised and forced to marry you. He wants to marry this other girl. He don't want to marry you. So they spend loads of time together where he's like supervising her and making sure she doesn't do something stupid, but also then they're spending a lot of time together and they fall in love with each other. I liked this one. It was probably my favorite of the 3. The leading guy's still not ideal. He's not my favorite, but it was decent enough time. The second one is Surrender of the Siren. We have a rich heiress who is fleeing from a marriage and she goes on a ship that has recently been turned into a passenger ship. It was previously a privateer ship and it is now a passenger ship, and it's like its maiden voyage as a passenger ship. The other perspective that we get is the owner of the ship who is trying to make a legitimate business after being privateers during the Napoleonic Wars. And the way that he is planning on doing that is becoming a passenger ship from the UK to the Americas. She's one of his first clients, his first like legitimate clients. He's very excited about that, only to find out that she's like a runaway and now he's worried that it affects his business. And then it's a romance between the 2. So we have like this forced proximity element. We have her befriending the whole crew, all of the type of things that you kind of expect of this. I'm not much of a maritime girly. There are some that I really love. Live Ships and Thai Child are some of my favorite series, so it can hit well. Not big on the maritime romance though, and this is exactly what that is. So I had a decent enough time. It could have been thematically richer. It was okay. It was perfectly okay. Those 2 are the ones that get 3 stars. The 2-star one is the last one, and I do just generally have problems with the romance in this one. Like I said, compulsively readable. Absolutely nothing wrong with the writing. Just the tropes in this one don't work for me. And this is a revenge romance. So we have a guy who was abandoned at the altar, and he decides that what he's going to do is he's going to seduce the sister of the man his fiance left him for. In the meantime, we have a woman who is like super pious and super religious who wants to marry a man because he is able to enter into parliament, or who already is in parliament and has influence, because she wants to use that influence to be able to help the poor. So then this guy comes around and he's trying to seduce her, and then she finds out he's able to get a position possibly in House of Commons, that he has the wealth to do so. They enter into this liaison and it's between the 2 of them. You know, it's a revenge story. There's never really worked for me romantically. Set up for a marriage of convenience, which just wasn't feeling very romantic either. I just really wasn't vibing with this couple, and I think that they have an incredibly toxic relationship. Not my favorite, probably one of my least favorite Tessa Dares, I would say. He's definitely one of my least favorite Tessa Dare men, but I had a good time while reading it. Like I said, still very consumable, just Got a bit better. After that, I did do a vlog reading through some historical romances so that I could actually get back into vlogging and doing content after having a brief interlude with my Tessa Dare moment. I read 4. I'll leave the vlog linked where I have worked my way up from the 1780s until the 1840s in 20-year increments. The first one that I read for the 1780s was Desperate Duchesses by Eloisa James, and this one is very fun because this one is much more dangerous liaisons. Not very Jane Austen, very dangerous liaisons. It's very sexy, it's very fun, it's more naughty, and it suits the time period because we're in the Georgian era, we're pre-French Revolution, everyone's behaving badly at this point. Everyone's being very naughty. We are still dealing with the ramifications of this kind of flip-flop that we have between really stark Puritanism that we had in the 1600s back to wanting to become more religious and then back to being naughty. We've had this flip-flop of how loose our morals are allowed to loose by historically Christian standards, but how loose or not our morals are going to be just before the French Revolution, and we go back and then we get your Regency and your Victorians, right? During this time period, everyone's behaving very, very naughty. And I really enjoyed that in this story. In this story, we are following a young woman who has a reputation for her father being absolutely desperate to marry her off for someone to marry her. And she's super embarrassed by it. But she is due to come out before the queen. So she goes to stay with a wealthy cousin who very distantly related, who has just returned from the continent. And she's going to be presented by her because she's a duchess, so it'll put her in good stead. In the meantime, this woman is besotted with this man that she's met once. Like that's the guy she's going to marry. So she's decided that she's going to get her cousin to help her seduce him. But the cousin has also agreed with a friend that she will basically ruin this guy's life because the friend believes that this guy ruined her husband's life. So we've got a lot going on. I really liked the Duchess. I really liked her. And then her brother, who is a wingman of the protagonist, but not really because he's more interested in seducing her for himself. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this. As I said, it was time appropriately naughty in a way that I could really get on board with. After that, we move into the 1800s. And in this one, I have Seeking Persephone by Sarah M. Eden. This one's a very clean romance, so the exact opposite. And in this one, we are following Persephone, who is in a Hades and Persephone style story where she gets married off to this man because he needs heirs, but he thinks that his life would be quite miserable. So he takes someone who would still benefit from this life. So he gives her family money because her family are in decline, and he kind of like helps out where he can in exchange for her being his wife, and all because he, I guess, believes that he's not worthy of love. And it's a romance between the two. It's very cute. It's very sweet. I'm really excited to try the TV series. And yeah, I enjoyed it. The next one I have is by Sarah McLean, and that is 9 Rules to Break When Romancing a Rake. This one is a romance in which we are following a woman who has been shelved. She's on the shelf. It's been 10 years. This one is set in the 1820s. She came out in 1813 and has just been on the shelf since. So she just really is done with it. However, there is this guy who she kind of enlists the help to start living a little bit. She's just done with doing everything properly and being a good girl. It's not got her anywhere. So she's decided she's done with it. So there's this guy who's kind of like a notorious rake who wants help bringing his sister out into society. So she'll help bring his sister out into society, and in exchange, he helps her complete this bucket list of things that she wants to do, things that she wants to try, like drinking in a tavern or trying a cigar or trying fencing, etc. It was a really fun one. I really liked a load of the commentary in here around the way that patriarchal societies determine even the smallest things as to whether or they are masculine or feminine. And I think that was handled really well. The romance was really good. There was one element in this story that really annoyed me, which lost it a whole star, because otherwise this book is practically perfect. It is, however, from that vlog, the one I'm most inclined to reread. So while I ranked it quite low when I did the ranking at the end of the vlog, I might change that on the basis that I do already want to reread this one. And the last one that we have for the 1840s is A Devil in Winter, which is the 3rd book in the Wallflowers series by Lisa Kleypas. This one is following Evie, who in a previous book, someone tried to kidnap someone so that he could get their wealth. And Evie is under the thumb of her really oppressive, really abusive family. So she goes to this guy and she's like, listen, I hear you're desperate enough for money that you're going to kidnap someone. So if you marry me, you can have all of my money that my family want to take away from me once my dad dies. In the exchange, we get married, and then you just kind of give me some freedom. I'm not under your thumb. You get my money, and then we can just kind of live separate lives. And it's a romance between the two. It's a marriage of convenience romance. I really liked this one. Also, this is redeeming a rake to the next level. level. This is redeeming someone who is literally a villain in a different book. And I think it was handled really well. There's a limit to how much I feel you can redeem this man for me to really fully get on board. But for what she was working with, she did a really good job and I really appreciated it. In a similar vein, once I finished that vlog, I then just continued with the series. So I read Scandal in Spring. This is the last book of the main Wallflowers series. There is a Christmas special and there is a prequel, but the main Wallflowers series, this is the last one that we have. And in this one, we are following the last of the 4 Wallflower girls whose father has basically said, look, it's been super expensive doing season after season for you to find a husband. If you don't find one this season, I'm marrying you off to my business associate, who is this young guy who he is prepping to take over his business, because even though he has sons, he doesn't think that his sons are competent enough to run this business as much as this other man. She's not interested in marrying him. So then when they are kind of pushed together and they end up actually maybe liking each other more than they anticipated, we get a romance. Really did enjoy this one. The main guy in this one I really liked as well. And I loved the way that Lisa Kleypas tackled power and economic imbalances in this series. So good. Really glad that I read it. I wouldn't say those last 2 are my favorites. I think my favorite is possibly still the first one. The 4th one potentially is my second favorite from the whole series. Later on in the month, as I said, while I was reading in the background of more intense reads, I did read 4 more, but they're coming in a vlog that is coming out in the summer. So I'm not going to talk about them very much, but I will just mention that I read them. The first one was The Siren of Sussex by Mimi Matthews, which is a Victorian romance, and we are following a young woman who is trying to find a suitor through her ability to ride in Rotten Row instead of through ballrooms. We have Portrait of a Scotsman by Evie Dunmore, which is the 3rd book in the League of Extraordinary Women series, and this one is following Hattie, who is one of the women that we have seen throughout the series, and we're also following Lucian, who is a Scottish businessman. And I have had thoughts on this book. I'll leave it at that, but I had thoughts on this one. The next one we have is Wedding of the Season by Laura Lee Gerke. This one is set in the early 1900s. I think it's 1901 when the bulk of the story is happening. And I also had thoughts on this one. This vlog didn't have the same vibe as the first one. And then the last one that I have is Surrendering to the Duke by Stevie Sparks, which is a historical romance-ish. It's mostly smut. It was fine. I had issues with it, but anyway, you'll see in the vlog. My friend Rachel took over my TBR, sort of, for a vlog. She took over my spinner wheel and I had to read a load of oracle picks. So I got out my oracle cards and I basically then would base which book I read on that card, be it because of the word or because of the picture or some association with the symbology, and I'd read a book. I read 3 books and DNF'd 1 for that vlog. The one I DNF'd was the first one, The Maiden and Her Monster. I DNF'd it, I think maybe 2 chapters in. I was sending pictures of some of the paragraphs through my Discord, what is this? Me and the writing style were just not meant to be together. And I am so sorry about it because the premise sounds amazing. And I really wish that I had it in me to continue. Maybe in the future I will. I have it digitally, so it's coming with me regardless. Maybe in the future I will, but at the minute, no thank you. First one that I did finish was City of Stardust by Georgia Summers. In this one, we are following a family that are cursed, where every generation a woman comes along and she takes away their kind of brightest member of the family. And our protagonist's mother disappears so that she can go and find a way to solve this issue and find out how to break this curse. Then when her mother doesn't come back and the lady who comes to collect is like, well, if the mother doesn't show up, I'm taking the daughter. She then decides that instead she's going to go and search for her mother and see if she can find her mother so that she can break the curse. It was fine. I gave it 3 stars. I had issues with it. It kind of felt like a little bit of a nothing burger. I just wish that there was more substance to it. I just don't really feel like I cared about anything. It was nicely written. The characters were decent enough. The plot was there, but none of it felt particularly significant enough for it to be memorable or for me to really care. They're an author I would definitely try again, but I am not fussed about this book in particular. Continuing in the it was fine vein, I also read Sorcery and Small Magics by my good Ducey, and this is one that enjoyed, but I'm not interested in continuing the series. It's fine. I really wanted to care more about the characters than I did. The world building was alright as well. I would have liked to have visualized it a little bit more, but it was alright. The plot didn't feel hugely compulsively readable, so I can't really pinpoint that there was anything hugely wrong with it, but there wasn't anything that was particularly right with it where I was desperate to read. So it was just something that I sort of tolerated my experience with, and I also gave this one 3 stars. Editing Faye here, realizing that I didn't actually give you a synopsis for this one, so I'll quickly jump in and do that. This is a rivals to lovers sort of story, although the romance is very, very minimal, and I feel like will be expanded a lot more in the second one, which I'm not reading. In this story, we are following 2 mages, one who can basically only perform minor magics, small magics. He's not very good at it, and he is the type of mage where he has to write out the spells. And then the other one, his rival, who he ends up getting paired with, is a very good mage, but struggles with reading the spells, which is unknown to the other guy. And so when he is tasked with working with his nemesis, he decides he's going to do a little bit of a light prank and do a really lengthy over the top spell. So he gives him a load of spells that are all over the top and really long, but amongst them is an illegal spell that he didn't put in there, that was accidentally put in there. It binds them together, so then they are not able to separate and one can control the other. So then they have to go in search of someone who will be able to separate them. They can't consult the school because they would get expelled. So basically they have to go search elsewhere to go find a mage that will hopefully be able to separate the 2. And as I said, I wasn't crazy about it. I wish I liked it more. And there wasn't a huge amount of romance in here, which was kind of what I was angling for when I picked it up in the first place. And then the last one that I read for that vlog was The West Wind by Alexandria Warwick. And this one is the second book in the, whatever the Winds one is called. The first one is The North Wind. And this one is following someone who is a bit of a villain, who needs a bit of a redemption arc from the first book. And we're also following this woman who lives in this nunnery, and she wants to become an acolyte, and she's done everything she can and she doesn't understand why she's so stagnant in place. Then one day she discovers this man who looks like he's dead, and then it turns out he's not, so she takes him back to her room so that she can heal him, even though that's against the rules. And then eventually they fall in love with each other. It's an interesting one. I liked it. I didn't like it as much as the first one. I found the first one really, really addictive, and that's all I wanted from this. I didn't really want it to be like a hugely inspirational book. I just wanted it to be fun and addictive. So I could have done with it being a little bit more addictive, but I really liked the protagonist of this one. I think she was so cool, and I would highly recommend you check it out if you're wanting like a more unusual protagonist in both the way that she's depicted by like her mindset and her inner strength, as well as her like physical strength. I started a project where I needed to read or unhaul some of the books that are on my TBR that I'm unsure about, be it books that were given to me, books that I bought in charity shops before I had more access to more variety of books, or books that don't belong to me that will be remaining here. I've done 2 vlogs for this. One, I don't know if it's out yet. I don't know what order I'm posting these in. If it's not out now, then it's the next vlog up. But in the first vlog, I picked up 4 books and I DNF'd 3 of them and I only read 1 of them. So the ones that I DNF'd, the first one I DNF'd was The Resurrectionist by James Bradley. This one is to do with body snatching in the Georgian era, and in it we are following a young man who initially is apprenticed to a doctor and then eventually joins his nemesis instead and tries to become a resurrectionist. So it's a little bit sort of pseudo Frankenstein-y as well, and I just didn't care. The premise of this sounds amazing. It should have been a book I loved, but I just didn't care in the slightest, and I ended up feeling so disconnected from the book I didn't understand why I was reading it, so I just gave up on it. The next one is one that I picked up back when I was in my Sherlock Holmes era. I read all of the Sherlock Holmes books back to back, and then my husband found this one for me, which is The Beekeeper's Apprentice, and saw that it was a Sherlock Holmes retelling, fictional sequel I suppose, and I thought it would be really cool to read it. So I picked it up and then I didn't, and it's been years. It's been like 4 years. This one is a murder mystery, really. It didn't really feel very Holmesian either. I just wasn't vibing with it. Like, there was nothing inherently wrong with it. I'm just not the target reader for it. And the reason I hadn't picked it up for all these years became apparent that I was just not interested. So I DNF'd it. The protagonist was a little bit of a Mary Sue as well, which wasn't really my vibe. So as much as I would have liked to have gotten more into this, I just really didn't. And then one that I kind of finished, I skim read the last third just because I wanted to know how it ended, but I didn't really like the writing style, and that is The Rani of Jhansi by Prince Michael of Greece. This is the story of the Rani of Jhansi, who is a Indian historical figure, and I just didn't like the writing style. Like, the story is interesting, but I said in the vlog, I kept reading this and then just being like, oh, I'll Google that later. Like, I was more interested in just what Wikipedia or Google would have to say than what this book had to say. If this ever came back out and it was written by an Indian woman and it was expressing it in an interesting way and was thematically rich, I'd like it. But this just felt like it was informing me of her life. It just felt more like a biography, even though it's kind of pitched as a novel. Also, I don't know which things are accurate versus which things are invented by the author, because there's no way of really knowing unless I Google it. So it just wasn't for me. I skim read the ending because I was curious, but I needn't have bothered, really. And the only one from that vlog that I did read in its entirety, but I'm still not keeping, sadly, is The Court of the Air by Stephen Hunt. This is the first book in a series, and I definitely won't be continuing the series. It's a steampunk story in which we're following two perspectives. The first perspective is that of Molly, who has just become a prostitute, only for everyone at the home that she used to live in and everyone in the brothel that she is now working in have all been mysteriously murdered. So clearly she is their target, and she has to go on the run because she doesn't understand what they're searching for. On the flip side of that, we have Oliver, who has lived a very sheltered life working for his uncle who's in trade, but then he's framed for murder and he has to also go on the run. So we have these two then having to work together. It was okay. I actually did enjoy this, but this is a book more that I respect than that I enjoyed. Like, it wasn't one that I was like, oh, I really love these characters, I'm super invested in the one. I thought that it did a good job of presenting themes, of describing things, of creating stakes. It had a lot of action in it as well. So if you're an action-based reader, if you want your stories to be really like chock-a-block, this one would definitely be that. So it's not one that I would necessarily recommend against. It's just not one that I particularly loved. And then the second of these vlogs, which again may not be out yet, has 3 books in it as well. And those are just the books that I was most excited to read from this TBR. The ones that if I could only take 3 books with me, it would be these. So I tried them out. The first one that I picked up was Labyrinth by Kate Moss. This was a 4-star read for most of the book, and then the last third just kind of lost me a little bit. But this is a dual timeline story. The first one is following Alice Tanner, who discovers something in France that she shouldn't have discovered, and now everyone wants to get information from her, and she's kind of embroiled in this sort of mystery. It's a little bit Da Vinci Code vibes. And the other one is in 13th century Carcassonne, and we are following Elise, who is a 17-year-old who has a secret that she needs to hide. So it's following the two and how the two are linked. I did really enjoy this, and I would continue the series, but I think I'm going to continue the series in my library when I move. I have checked and it is available in my library, instead of these being something that I transport and lug around, because this was a 3-star read and these are very readily accessible. So they're not ones that I necessarily need to own in my collection. So while I enjoyed my time with it and I'm glad that I read it and I definitely would want to continue, they're not ones I necessarily need to own and take up space in my own personal library. The next one that I picked up was The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. I really liked this one as well. This was such a good book. It really blends mystery elements with historical fiction in a really good way. Historical drama with just a little bit of mystery going on in the background, which suits me more because I'm not much of a mystery reader. The depictions of this time period, because this is set in the 17th century Amsterdam, and we are following a young woman who's just gotten married, and her husband, as a wedding gift, gifts her a house, like a miniature house that she can then decorate, and she orders some pieces so that she can start decorating the house, for then things to start showing up that she hasn't ordered, things that show way too much information, and she wants to discover what exactly is going on in her new household. I really did like this. I also watched the show for this, really enjoyed that as well. I would highly recommend, if you're a magical realism, historical fiction, mystery combo kind of fan. To be honest, this is one that I would keep, but I'm not going to be able to get a matching edition of this with the sequel, so I don't know if I'm keeping it. I'm not going to lie, it's in limbo at the moment. And the last one that I picked up was The Worthy by Anna K. Moss, and this one is a epic fantasy. It's sapphic and it's sibling rivalry. We have a prince who was betrayed and abandoned by his people, and he's now filled with anger and revenge, and he wants to take back his throne. And then we have his sister, who is trying everything she can to secure her place on the throne. This was good. It was a little bit action heavy, and it very much does not hold your hand. It just dumps you in and you kind of have to vibe with it. We're also mostly following Boston, who is the male lead, and he is not a nice guy. Like, he is literally, we are following the bad guy. And I don't mean in we're following the bad guy and we get a redemption arc and we get to see the origin story of why they behave so badly. He's an asshole from the start and you don't feel sorry for him. So it definitely leaned into grimdark in a really interesting way. This is one that I am keeping and one that I did really enjoy while I read it. It's not necessarily new favorite territory, but it is one that I've really appreciated and one that I would recommend if you're looking for a standalone in the self-pub sphere. Although I'm not sure it's a standalone based on the ending, but I think it is. So I think it's just going to be one of those endings that didn't necessarily tie everything up in a neat bow, and the ending still was quite satisfying in a different way. And then the last two books that I have to talk about are the ones that I read in my Getting Ready to Move vlog. And the first one is Fable for the End of the World by Ava Reid. This one is a dystopian romance standalone. In this story, we are in a horrible capitalistic future in which people are murdered on TV for entertainment, a little bit Hunger Games style. You have what are called angels, who are these genetically modified people who are able to then go and hunt people who are put up for the gauntlet, which is this trial, if they are in debt or if their family are in debt. Our protagonist, Anessa, gets put up for the gauntlet by her mother, who is in debt and she's an addict. And our other protagonist is one of the angels, so one of these modified people who is going to go do the hunting. And she had a breakdown on camera last time she ran a gauntlet. So she has to do this right, or she is going to get discontinued, basically, which means that then she'll most likely be sold off as arm candy to some rich mogul. It's a romance between the two. The romance takes a while to kick in. I liked this, but I didn't love this. I really wanted the romance to be a slower burn instead of it being nothing and then everything. It kind of felt a little bit like an on-off switch, as opposed to we're slowly falling in love with each other even though we're on opposing sides and one of you is supposed to be murdering the other. So while I wish I liked this more, it's sapphic, Hunger Games. So no huge complaints. I'm glad I read it. I just wish I loved it more. And then the very last thing that I have to talk about is one that I buddy read with my friends over on my Discord, and that is Vile Lady Villains by Denai Christopoulou. And this one is the story that merges the lives of Lady Macbeth from Shakespeare's play Macbeth and the Euripides version of Clytemnestra, i.e. the woman that eventually murdered Agamemnon. And this was a really interesting story because it parallels the two, the way that these women function within their narratives, but it also takes them out of narratives and has a meta level to it of what leaving your story behind looks like, and living outside of your story and letting yourself evolve outside of what's been preordained for you. And it's sapphic, and it was a very interesting time. It's a very, very meandery book. I say this a lot in the vlog, I think. It's a very meandery book. It takes its sweet time to get there, but it's really worth it. It's a really engaging story in the way that it's presenting its themes and its characters. So if you're a plot-driven reader, I would definitely stay 10 million miles away from this. If you're a character-driven reader or a themes-driven reader, I would highly recommend. The only other one that I have to mention, which again is for a vlog, so I'm not going to talk about it very much, but I did read The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. I have a dedicated spoiler review for this coming in summer, so I won't talk about it too much, but that wasn't what I was expecting. It's not the book I was expecting it to be. That's all I'll say. But there you have it. Those are all of the books that I read in May. Well, not even all of them. Again, I think at least one of the tested down ones actually got read in April, but it is what it is. Been doing a bit of weird swapping around with April and May, but that's a lot of books. I have been mostly reading digitally and I have been reading for escapism. So like I said in April, I am not expecting to be reading anywhere near as much from June onwards because my life is just going to be so hectic. So I've just been using as much reading as possible for escapism while I can. So let me know if you've read any of these and your thoughts on them. Let me know if, based on my enjoyment of these, if you have any other recommendations for me. And that is all from me for today. So thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll hopefully catch you in another one soon. Bye!